Good morning and welcome back. Oh, I got it right here already. Brad, hello, welcome. We're just going to jump
Well,
in, I guess,
welcome.
at the beginning. Michael's having trouble figuring out the internet of things, so we're going to roll with it.
Hi, I'm
All right,
Tommy. Welcome.
Yeah, I know.
I love it.
See that impression, yeah. So,
Well, if you couldn't tell by our main title today, we're talking about data warehouses, and Brad will be our expert from Microsoft here talking with us. So, Brad, thank you for a fast and quick introduction onto this one. So,
Of course.
looks like you're hanging out for the news. So we're just going to do it.
I'm here. I'm here for it.
Excellent. All right, Tommy. Before we get into our main topic, we do a little news items. There's a lot of articles always coming out. We want to talk about things that are coming out that are interesting. Tommy and I are enjoying right now. Tommy, kick us off with your first one here. We got some.
oh man,
Materialized lake views. Is that kind of what we're starting with? All right.
what's a materialized lake view? So materialized lake view is something that they've talked about already in the past, but it's really a powerful way for us to streamline and automate our data within the lakehouse architecture. Some of the key steps is you can mirror the SQL data, create the shortcuts, build the materialized lake view. Why would you do it? Well, it reduces manual coding. It enhances the data quality and the governance across the layers, and also can give us a little faster insights into our dashboards. And it makes it a lot more scalable from orchestration and performance and security. So there's a ton here. This is obviously one of those. Well, I'm not just building a lake house. We're diving in. We're not going stuff. We're diving in. We're doing our butterfly strokes kind of thing right into the lake. So this, if you are using lake houses on a very high production level, this is something you have to look at.
The one thing I'm going to pull out here is one of the features that I'm looking at this and going, I'm glad they did this. In the documentation that they give, and I'll make sure I put the link here in the chat window as well for those who want to watch and follow along on this one as well. Step number 5 in this list of items, again, I'm getting very specific here, is in this materialized view, they're talking about setting up your schedule. What's the refresh speed on which you need these things to be refreshed? I think this is amazing. I've often said, like, you have to think about like data warehousing or getting data out of the SQL databases. It's not transactional always in nature. And sometimes I'm fine with a load in the middle of the night. And that's all I need for the day. Mirror what I want to mirror, drop it in a lake. I don't want to run compute every hour throughout the day and waste a lot of CUs that I may not be using. I need the data when I need it, but I don't necessarily need it every single second. Right. So I like that part of this. I think that's going to be very helpful there as well. And I'm interested to see more of where we're going with materialized lake views. I think these are very useful. I do feel like, and again, since Brad's here, I feel like there's a bit of a mind shift happening a little bit. I think a lot of times we were thinking, when I come in from the SQL world, I think a lot about staging tables and then getting rid of records I don't need and being very tuned on the storage side of things. I'm going to be very careful about not over storing things because I had a server on-prem and we can't fill it up too fast, right? It's a certain size. On the cloud side, it feels like that mindset has shifted slightly. Like I'm favoring materialized things more than I am storage things because it's faster for me not to have to recompute it, or it's cheaper basically. It's cheaper for me to compute it once, save it, and then just use that over and over again. Brad, what are your thoughts on this too? Is this kind of a mind shift difference that we're kind of seeing a bit more with cloud?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, storage is so cheap and it's just there. It's commodity in the cloud. So if we can make things much faster by just pre-calculating, pre-storing, then obviously, I mean, that's a quick win. I think the thing that's interesting about the materialized lake views that I like is the fact that it's like we're trying to say you can use it between PySpark and SQL, Spark SQL over there.
Yes.
So like we can't use it against T-SQL. I don't think so, at least at this point. Anyway, I haven't seen that. But being able to cross languages like that over on the Python side, being that you can support multiple languages in the notebook, I think is super smart and a really great way to do that. So that helps bring some people together and, back to the stuff we've talked about over the last 2 weeks, like give everybody their ability to use their skill set. So I think that's fun.
Awesome. Michael in the comments asks, is this still on a separate lake house? You can't have bronze and silver on the second one. Wasn't quite clear to me in the blog. I'm going to actually refer Michael. This is brand new, kind of newer feature out here, just recently released. I'm also going to put the link to the actual documents for Materialized lake views. It's in preview, so what you see here may change slightly to the end of the actual items here. But check out this other link, Michael. There's another more detailed version of what's going on here, and I think the area. Whenever Tommy and I read documentation from Microsoft, the first thing we should go to is the limitations.
Bottom. Yeah.
See what's in scope and what's out of scope. That's usually a good place to frame your mind around things. So maybe what you're asking for, Michael, is directly there. I would also check out the limitations there. Maybe what you're talking about is inside that limitations. For now, we'll see. Likely those are going to be removed later on. Okay. Awesome first topic. Second topic here. Tommy, you got Fabric Notebooks, UDFs. Okay, let's be clear. This sounds like user data functions and not user defined functions. That's a DAX thing. User data functions is now inside notebooks. Is that what I hear?
Yeah, I mean, I love, by the way, thanks, Microsoft. Oh, we actually have some from Microsoft we can say thank you to. Thank you for having 3 things called UDFs. SQL UDFs, user defined. So this is user data functions, the Python thing.
I don't know why you guys are confused about this.
It's pretty straightforward. So yeah,
it's very obvious to me.
Yeah, I don't think we can make this more clear, kind of thing. By the way, we have a 4th UDF. No, user data functions, the one that you create a Python and just create functions. Is going to be with Transanalytical. Well, part of the preview is, if I'm again. Could be mistaken here, but this allows you to use UDFs directly in Python notebooks. So there's native Panda support.
Yes.
Use in notebooks. I can use it with the notebook utilities package, intelligence and autocomplete. So a lot of features here, but Mike, we've been talking about user data functions a lot. We've talked about notebooks a lot. Seems like a no-brainer to me, yet for whatever reason, I'm having some hesitation on the process here. So what's your take?
Oh, this is a good question. I mean, it's nice to have be able to use anything from anywhere from a notebook. I mean, this is one characteristic that I feel like notebooks have been just rocking on it right now. Notebooks can kind of pretty much do anything you want anywhere in Fabric, which is, again, very nice. But notebooks are very heavy code centric. So you have to be comfortable running notebooks and Python and things like that. So I understand there's a bit of a trade-off here. I also am thinking about, like, you could build custom user data functions to do a specific thing. Now, Tommy, we've talked about this couple times in the podcast. There's like a hierarchy of efficiency on moving data, right? At the lowest end, the least efficient way to move data is data flows, Gen 2. Sadly, it is, but that's the way the CUs roll out. The next most efficient way seems like it's notebooks. Notebooks seem to be pretty efficient. Copy jobs up there somewhere near, data flows Gen 2. It's kind of expensive, but it does make the UI easier. So if you have the extra CU compute, go ahead and use it. No problem. Then I get to notebooks. Notebooks seems a bit more efficient, right? There's a little more code, but it runs at less CUs. UDFs seem to be like the most efficient thing that I've seen so far in Fabric. They run quickly and they seem to be cheap compared to everything else that runs. But you're writing really a lot of code and you're doing a lot more work inside the functions themselves. So just my rough testing. So who's to say you don't test something in a Fabric notebook, figure out, hey, that might be interesting. Let's go use it in a UDF, and you build the UDF off of what you've learned in the notebook. And then in the notebook, when you want to call it, you just call the function, and maybe that runs a bit better of an API and does some extra things. Or now that the UDF is available, you can use that in analytical task flows with Translytical. You can now run those same functions from a report. So now you can do something in a notebook and a report and that uses the same function. I mean, I think this is good practices around designing code. My only hesitation is it's now one more place we're putting code. It's just another, you gotta know it's there.
Yeah, but Mike, I'm gonna push back a little. Is it a good place to put code? Because one, this is working with Apache Arrow. It doesn't say this works without Apache Arrow. Two, this is not really pushing data, especially with the user data function, at least with the Transanalytical point of view. I will always quote my favorite character from any movie, Ian Malcolm's Jurassic Park. He says, they didn't ask themselves, just because they could doesn't mean they should. And I think this is, to me, I look at this cool, but if I already have IDE with VS Code, if I already have a place I can build a user data function, right? Why do I want this in a notebook? unless I am doing exactly what they're basically the example here. If that's my scenario, like, wow, they wrote that for me. For me, at least right now, I'm hesitating to say, why would I add it to an additional place?
Well, I think about the example of there. I can't say for all examples, right? But like, there's going to be common things you're going to want to use multiple places, and I'm also thinking about there's action based things, right? So UDFs can do anything. It's just it's a function that can run other API calls. You can do IoT stuff. Go get data in. UDFs also have the ability of capturing data and putting it somewhere else. I think about the idea of like you need the surface area of a user data function to be as large as possible, because then it gives the creativity back to the developers, right? Whatever they want to build, you can build the most that you have there. So I'm pro more options. My only hesitation here is just governance. So I think it's a win. I would probably disagree with you on that one, Tommy, there. I think it's a good place. Brad, what are your thoughts on this one?
I was going to say, I guess my question is, what is it that you're writing? What data is it that you're writing that makes you say that the user data function is more efficient than a Python notebook or these other routes? Like, I agree with your hierarchy there, with the three pieces that you laid out. But I don't necessarily, outside of like translytical scenarios, I don't necessarily see functions as being like the thing that I'm going to go to move data around. I see it as like, I've had customers that I've talked with, and we set up a function so that they could pass some stuff in to do an auditing framework. And like, that was the most interesting, like, random use case for it that I've seen so far. There's a lot of stuff like Michael was mentioning in the chat there, where folks are using it to say, hey, I want to have this common framework to be able to do XYZ to my data and that sort of thing. But given the like compute size that runs behind these, I wonder if at what point the scale is going to become large enough that it's going to no longer be as efficient as some of the other methods that you mentioned. So like question. For translytical stuff where it's like small read, small write, that sort of stuff, I think you're probably right. But I would hesitate if you get beyond like very small data sets, I think. But to your point, got to test it and see.
Let me expand some of my ideas, because I agree with the challenge there, and I think it's actually a good, fair challenge there as well. I'm just going to give you some of my experience of what I've seen when I run things just in Azure, right? So if I'm going to Azure and like, so when I spin up a Python notebook or a Spark notebook, I'm getting like a driver and a worker always. Like, so Spark is probably the one that's maybe a bit more expensive. Now, if you just do a pure Python notebook where I have a single node cluster and it's running one, so maybe that's a bit more competitive price wise. But whenever I've run Azure functions, they've been like dirt cheap. Now, again, I'm using an analogy of what I understand from the Azure world, and I'm bringing it to Fabric. Sorry. So if user data functions are Azure functions brought to Fabric, right? Anytime I've run functions before in the past, I could run a ton of them, and like it's almost cost me nothing to run them. So to your point, Brad, there might be a tipping point here of like, look, those functions need to be a certain size of memory, right? If I'm going to load hundreds of millions of rows using a function, I might not be able to run. That might be not a good use case for where the function is. But if I need to run something that's like doing a regular task over and over again, the functions are efficient, fast, and super cheap to run. My opinion, again, I don't know the back end. This is me speculating based on my pricing that I've gotten from Azure, is functions are like almost next to nothing for Microsoft to run. Everything else is kind of coming with a bit more, .NET. It's a bigger machine. It's bigger computers. It's bigger stuff, because the UI of stuff cost things, right? It's cost more money to be able to spin up a UI. And there's also, from Microsoft's standpoint, a lot of development that goes into building the UIs. That's one of the reasons why I think data flows costs the way it does, because there's a pretty sizable team behind it to build the UI to make it easy to use, to maintain that. So in order to keep that going, like the price you pay for that is a little bit higher. So that just feels like what the pricing's doing. Again, this is me of an outsider kind of looking at Microsoft, not being in Microsoft. I don't know. This is just a speculation in my opinion.
Brad, you just got to see a really rare moment. It's when Mike's brain opens up and you see the mind of an engineer. Mike, I don't know if you noticed you did this, but you went straight into code in your talking. You went, well, if this is this, then this.
Yes.
You completely created a Boolean statement. It's a glorious moment when that happened.
I should have started with a switch, probably a bit faster if I just did a switch.
But I love it. No, I think Mike, I do want to explore it. Really honestly, to your point, like right now, it's like, okay, but I think a big thing is always, okay, let's see the examples. Let's test it out. Let's see what scenarios this makes sense in. And so definitely not opposed at all. It's like, okay, this is a scenario. Do I have that one? Maybe not. But I think a lot of these things is like, okay, let's see the different use cases. Let's see when I can implement this. Maybe it's going to be outside of transit analytical. But no, I think this is I think this is something we'll be following up on.
And one thing I think that's a kind of an unblock here for me that when I look at this, right? So when we're in a notebook, I mean, Pandas is by far, I'll argue this all day long. Pandas is not the most efficient way to use and manipulate data. It just isn't, right? If you look at MIM and what he does, he's using like DuckDB and all these other things that are like, there's way more efficiency of like shaping data and moving data around. Pandas is not the most efficient step to run. Again, we're getting very nitpicky here, right? If you're writing notebooks and you're using pandas, it's probably fine. It's probably okay. But just note that there's other ways of shaping and transforming data. And if you use the Spark data frames, it's a bit faster, more efficient, right? So one of the things that is interesting here in this article that they call out, which is the UDFs now natively support pandas, right? So that's the Apache Arrow experience. That was one of the probably an unblock for you, right? So it would be very confusing if I had a Spark data frame or a Pandas data frame, and I'm trying to send that over to a UDF, and it's like I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand the format. So I think there's something here also where there's like, even when you're working in a notebook or in data structures, there's a framework that you're building the data around, and to just be able to lift that data structure across all platforms is going to be helpful, right? And again, I'm gonna pick on you again, Brad, here. So sorry you're here for the news. When I'm talking through notebooks or reading things to and from the warehouse, I'm not sending Pandas data frames to data warehouse, right? I mean, that's not a thing at this point, correct? Question, kind
of. So we do have, there is in Spark, you can write a data frame to the warehouse. There is the Synapse SQL connector, the same thing that we had in the Synapse days. We brought that over earlier this year. But to your point, it's not the Panda, like you can't send a Pandas data frame. It's got to be a Spark data frame in order to do that. But it's fairly easy to convert a Pandas data frame into a Spark data frame and vice versa and do that. But I think because user data functions are running the Python 3.11 environment there, runtime, I think naturally we had to give some way inside of Python purely to be able to do this sort of thing. So you're probably not going to be doing that like native data frames, like Spark data frames, because they don't exist in there.
Exactly right. Again, this is kind of like my point of like, you've got to figure out some, and Brad, back to your point around pandas to warehouse, I also agree with you. Like, so that makes sense, right? But there's also this little bit of a hiccup. This is where I wish the notebook team would do better, right? Let's say I did have a pandas data frame and I'm trying to write it back over to the warehouse. Maybe Microsoft should just be like, okay, notebook team, you understand what's going on here. Let's just switch it for you automatically and just go from there. I know there's implications with this, but having it to go anywhere I want is helpful.
But I think, and this is kind of where like the edge of my Spark knowledge kind of comes into play here. But like pandas, like a pandas data frame, there is a to SQL function that you can use on there to write it to SQL. I think that the issue there is that it doesn't allow like identity pass through, like impersonation or anything like that. You have to pass it a username, password, and a connection string to go along with that. And so I don't know that pandas natively will allow us to like do SPN or manage workspace identity or something like that to be able to go through. But yeah, I mean, interesting idea for sure. On that front. Okay,
good. All right, we beat that one to death now. Let's go to the final topic here. So final topic, Tommy and I are going to be we're crawling out of the basements. We're coming out of hibernation. Tommy, what's going on? We got an event here in Chicago coming up.
My goodness, we should have started with this, but we are having our next Chicago Power BI / Microsoft Fabric user group downtown Chicago. It's a crash course on Fabric. If you are like, you know what, this is cool, you guys talk about it, but I want to see it in action. I want to demo it. I want to ask you, could you do this and do it in real time with us in person? Well, guess what? You can. October 2nd, We are hosting at the Microsoft office. It's on Randolph Street downtown. And we're trying something new, Mike, because we've been hearing from a lot of people that 6 p.m. is always a little late. So let's get you out of work. We're doing this at 3 p.m. We're having
skipping work.
We'll skip work for work. It will be for work, but we're still have food, of course. So we want to see you there. If you're in the Chicago area, anywhere around downtown, take the L. We can see you there. But it's a crash course in Fabric. Ask us questions. It'll be very interactive.
Awesome. More information and details in the meetup that is also in the chat window, also in the description here as well. So if you want to go join us, make sure you sign up for the meetup. There is a slight, I think you still do the slight payment fee.
Just so we know you're coming.
We want to weed out people that are like not going to show up. So there's just a little, like it's $5. $3. It's the cheapest thing that Meetup will let you use, I guess. So it's like a $3 fee just to show up. That helps a little bit. It offsets some of the food costs, but food will be provided. Tommy, what do you typically do? Is it subs, pizza? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, we usually do the Jimmy John's. I've tried the deep dish, but you know what happens? Everyone just falls asleep. So
Jimmy John's it is.
Jimmy John's, yeah.
All right, awesome. So that's great. Tommy, we're probably at time. Let's jump into our main topic. What do you say?
I think that's perfect, Mike. Brad, we are excited to talk about the future, and we've talked a lot about things in the past, where we're at right now. But Microsoft has been doing a lot with the roadmap, and especially focused around the data warehouse. So, and I'm looking at this plan here, and the link is in the chat as well. It's also will be in the video description and the podcast. And I'm looking at this, and quite a bit of things planned, and let's take this from an assumption that I'm dumb, which would be true, but let's take a look at this. And I'm looking at all this, and I don't know where to start, and I don't know what I want to be or what I should be excited for. So I think let's kind of just kick it off with the roadmap, with Microsoft working on what they're going to plan. From all the conversations we've had over the past 3 episodes, where has Microsoft's kind of objective been around what you want to work on? And for whom?
Yeah, so I think when we first planned on doing this back in July, and then we had to shift things out a little bit, I was like, man, we're gonna have so much to talk about in the roadmap episode, and then we ended up pushing out. Now we're at the end of August. I'm like, man, a ton of the stuff that I was planning on talking about isn't there anymore. Like, we already released it. The good news is we got to talk about it over the last 3 episodes, so that's been good. So when I look at the roadmap, I kind of break this down into 4 categories. I've got a couple things for each one of these. The first one being architecture. The second one being the no code folks, or citizen developer. Then you got the code first people. They're maybe not and I'll just say the last one is pro code. So low code, no code, or low code, no code, low code, no code, low code, pro code. There we go. And then
I like
architecture.
It. That feels like it should be a T-shirt.
I haven't heard that.
There we go. I'll see what I can do. We'll see if we can get it for FabCon next year.
We're back.
Yeah, I love
it. But so if we start like in the architecture side of things, I think there's 2 things. I think only one of them is actually on the official roadmap page. The other one, I know we've talked about it. I don't know if it's actually on the roadmap or not, but I think we did announce this at maybe FabCon. It should be coming here pretty soon. But the first one, real quick, is CMK for the data warehouse, the customer managed key. So if you're somebody who's in the administration world, you've probably worked with SQL Server for any period of time, like transparent data encryption and bring your own key and all that sort of stuff comes up constantly. It's a compliance thing for a lot of organizations. And as you all have probably seen, there's been a big security push from the Microsoft side over the last year or so, things like workspace level private link and all that sort of stuff rolling out now. So this is just one more thing that kind of checks the boxes on that, so that if you're an architect, you don't have to worry about that piece of compliance anymore. So we'll be respecting the customer managed key for the OneLake side of things. So that's not really necessarily like a warehouse specific feature. It actually technically, I think, falls on the platform side, but there's always to be honest, this is one of the challenges with Fabric is we release a feature and then the question is, all right, well, which workloads does it apply to? Workspace level
yeah.
private link is is a good example of that. It's like, hey, oh, awesome, we got workspace level private link now. But which workloads actually use workspace level private link is in the
Sure.
question. So good news with this one is it'll be picked up by the warehouse.
And I'm going to go jump on your comment here around the CMK for everything. So customer managed keys in general, right? I don't want to be the business of managing infrastructure at all anymore. I want all the, like me, I'm lazy or efficient, whatever you want to call me. Like I just want I want Microsoft to own those things. Yeah. Thanks. You're generous. I just want I want the check boxes, right? I just want to be like, okay, security says the best practices in security are being led by Microsoft. And honestly, I like the idea of like, Microsoft's security team is going to be bigger and larger than my security team at any day, right? So they're going to pay more to have a security surface area that's legit. They're going to keep up on all the TLS, protocols and standards and which ones are up to date and which ones are not. So I would like to think that Microsoft is going to have much deeper pockets in the security area than I will. So I'll just follow suit with what they do. And as long as Microsoft recommends these are best practices according to standards, roll it out. Give me the checkbox that I can go use the feature that I need to. So if someone from security compliance comes in and says, hey, Mike, are you doing private link? Like, yeah, it's here. The checkbox is there. We can add it to our VPN. We can lock people out. Let's prove it. Watch, and it does it. So I like this. I don't want to be in the business of infrastructure management anymore. That seems like we're beyond those days at this point.
So I need to plug in here because to me, there's a bigger story. What you're talking about, Brad. We're talking about this internally right before we got on, and this is a conversation Mike and I have had since Fabric came out about if you're a Fabric expert, well, does that exist? Because all the things we're talking about have existed in very technical terms before Fabric. The data engineering, the security side. And it sounds like the feature, especially with CMKs and also that low code, no code, pro code, well, it's alleviating a lot of those processes and a lot of those technical widgets that an expert would have to do in each of those and making it a lot easier for people to turn on, to turn off, almost to allow that Fabric expert to exist. Because again, can you find someone who has 20 years experience in data engineering, 20 years experience in data science, 20 years experience in semantic models?
Good point.
And to me, I'm hearing all this and I'm thinking, oh, we're just kind of alleviating a lot of those, it under the rock, so to speak, necessary configurations to allow someone to know not the basics, but the main features. And is that at all a conversation around what you're doing around the CMK and also that low code, no code, pro code?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want that to be as easy as possible for all of this stuff. Like, ideal world, we land a feature and it gets picked up by everything. And to your point, I mean, that's the only possible way that we're going to get people to be Fabric experts as opposed to Fabric security experts or data warehouse or whatever it happens to be. Like there's just no way around that because of the size and scope of what's inside of Fabric. I mean, it is literally like 6 different products, as we were chatting about earlier this morning. And so I think, we have to continue, and we need you all to continue to push us, quite frankly, on that to say, hey, you guys landed this feature, but there's all these caveats now that we have to take into account, because at the end of the day, like we can make it easy and it just applies to everything and it just works. We can make it a little bit more difficult in that you have to go feature by feature and apply it, or we can make it really difficult and put it at the platform level, and then you have to go figure out on your own which one of those things that it happens to be applying to. We can help with that last one with documentation a little bit, but it's still like people aren't going to go into the portal and say, oh, well, I'm going to go put my customer managed key in here. And then, oh, by the way, there's a link at the bottom here that says go to this doc page to figure out which one of these things it actually applies. Like, we can't do that sort of stuff and make people successful, I don't think. So that's where I say we need you folks and others in the community to continue to push us on those usability things so that we can have true Fabric experts out there.
So I'm gonna put the analogy here to food, Mike. here, but what I'm
There we go.
here,
Wait, every episode has to talk about food. Let's be real
only
here.
way I make sense of things. You can purchase the cake, you can buy the cake mix, or you can get the flour and start yourself. And those are kind of the layers that we're going here.
I prefer to buy the cake. I'll go to Costco. I'll get my sheet cake. We're good to go. Just keep spitting out that SQL Data Warehouse sheet cake. I'm good to go. And that's sheet cake, SHEET, like a sheet of cake. Like that. I'm not swearing on the podcast.
Is that a sheet cake for one, or is that a sheet cake for the family, or
for me? Just for me. I just I'll just freeze part of it, and then I just kind of slowly eat on it all the time.
Mine is family size, but it's for me. So
that's how I am with pizza. I just what's the largest pizza? That's okay. That's for me.
Oh yeah, that's
everybody else eating.
That's the size.
Man cannot live on bread alone, but Tommy could definitely live on a lot of pizza. Like that would be that's.
I can live on bread alone.
It's like the Joey special, 2 pizzas.
Exactly. Thank you, somebody, kind of thing. I digress.
So the other,
I want to throw one more. Just while you're talking creature comforts here, I do want to throw another one around like things that you're making it easier for us. And I think this kind of fits your last comment there, Brett, which is like, we're trying to remove some barriers, make it. There's less cliffs to fall off. Like when you're going down these experiences, it's not like okay, I got close enough to the edge of this surface area, and now I have nothing to help me. One that I'm very excited about, which is refresh the SQL Analytics endpoint using an API, albeit much more pro developer level stuff. But the fact that this exists, I've had some challenges with. I'm doing Lakehouse table changes, and then the definition of the Delta table is changing, but the warehouse wasn't kind of like picking up on it quick enough. And there's like some kind of scheduler or timer, and I needed to be a bit more responsive. And when I'm used to using notebooks, I write the table, and if I read it in the very next cell, it grabs the latest definition and pulls it in. Now, again, I don't know all the technical pieces behind this, but the fact that there's a programmatic trigger that I can just say, okay, look, I've added some data. Now, warehouse, refresh yourself. Go get the latest definitions of all the Delta files, either by table or by, I'm guessing this is by table or by the whole Lakehouse schema or things. This is going to be helpful, I think, because that reduces some friction for me when I'm going between like notebooks and warehouses. So that I really like.
Yeah. No, that one's really interesting because it's one of those things that solves a problem that is unfortunate that we end up having to surface, because there is, like you said, that little bit of delay. It runs on a schedule every couple of minutes to be able to refresh the metadata on the SQL Analytics endpoint. And this isn't a perfect solution. Like I'll be honest, the API is not the ideal way to do this for all scenarios. Like think a mirroring database, for instance, that has data changes coming in or has a schema change or something like that, and you want the data as soon as it lands in, like as quickly as possible, basically. Like we still have to do the sync over to the analytics endpoint for those tables as well. You're not going to go run this API like every minute just to ensure that everything's up to date. So there are some places where it doesn't necessarily serve the end user purpose, and that we honestly have to do better, and we're working on some things to make that experience better. But exactly what you were saying there, for the pro code person who says, like this solves the biggest problem that we had with the endpoint was people that were coming in and doing the exact thing you said. Hey, I'm loading data into bronze, doing a notebook to turn it into silver, into tables. Then I go run my T-SQL procedure to move it into the warehouse or to read it into something, and it gives me an error message. Or I do a delete or a compaction or a optimize or vacuum. And then it says, hey, your file doesn't exist. But you're like, well, I know my file doesn't exist. I just ran vacuum and optimize on the table.
Yes.
Now we can do this. Like today, the way the API works is you just run the API and it'll go refresh everything. Now, if you look at the official docs, like this is a point in time thing. But if you go look at the docs, that is the only thing that is supported. And technically that is the only thing that is supported. However, there is a currently undocumented way that you can go refresh individual tables, because oftentimes we don't care about refreshing everything. We care about a couple of tables.
The table, yes. Especially in the pro code area where I'm like, I know I'm operating on this thing, and there's like that one table that's emergency. We've got to fix it, or I'm trying to get downstream things rolling. I just need it to be, when I'm done loading it, let's just make it sure it's updated.
Yeah. So that will be changing. That will be coming as a fully documented piece of functionality at some point in the future.
Love it.
So be on the lookout for that. You can use it today. I would just say loosely take a dependency on that if you want to. But if you go look at like Semantic Link Labs, this does exist already in there. So if you need like a code sample and you don't want to use necessarily Semantic Link Labs, I literally had this conversation with somebody last week. They said we aren't supposed to import any other libraries other than these handful of things here. And so they were like, we love that, but we can't use Semantic Link Labs. And so they just went out and found how they were calling it over there and called it a day. I think Mark Price Mayer from the CAT team, he's got a Python notebook out on his GitHub account that'll show you how to do that as well. So it's super easy. Be 100% officially supported in the hopefully very near future.
Awesome. And that's the kind of stuff that's the really nice, like, I like this. Like, this is what I expect roadmaps to be doing, is like taking these real world friction points and then kind of like refining them a bit and giving us some more things there. Okay, sorry. I'm gushing about that feature. We'll move on. Brad, your next feature to you. All right, Tommy, did you have something to say first?
Yeah. No, on the other side of the coin, Mike, there's the things that you're like, oh, this should have been out when Warehouses came out. Like, to me, I'm really happy to see this.
These are the ones I hate to talk about. I knew we were going to do this.
Do you want me to skip it? I can skip it.
No. I'm just joking. I should have put guardrails around this conversation when I agreed to do it.
Yeah. Oh, you should have joined. No, we don't.
To be honest, Brad, we've been working with Tommy for years now, just to have guardrails and limits to things. But Tommy just kind of like, it's Tommy. He jumps he's jumping the rails here. So like, this is great.
Me and Mike are very nice people. We don't curse. We don't do any of that stuff. But we're gonna push the boundaries.
All right, well, what do you got? Which one is it?
It's the audit logs.
It's going to be one of a handful.
Logs. It's going to be the SQL audit logs.
And really? That was not where I thought you were going to go with this. No, interesting.
From me, I think just from my own background, the compliance side and tracking everything has always been such an integral part. And again, I'm seeing this becoming more and more part of team's process. Again, you sold me. Congratulations! After 4 weeks of data warehousing, I'm all in. But it's very hard to do that without having be able to backtrack, especially in a team environment. So yeah, kind of walk us through this and what's going on.
Yeah, so if you come from SQL Server World or like SQL Server World specifically, there's always the audit log that you can go out and you can get information from. It's immutable, so people can't go out and change it. Like I did a project a long time ago, like when I first joined Microsoft, where I worked with one of the departments of a Department of Elections for one of the states up in the Northeast, and they were like, well, nobody is allowed to have access to this database in order to change data, because it was all about like campaign contributions, and like you're not allowed to submit after a certain period of time and all this sort of stuff. So like we put all these things in place, and we're like, but there's always got to be somebody in there who has the ability to do all this stuff. Like you always have to have a DBA. Like at some point you have to trust someone. But we all know that trust can only go so far, and you have to have a way to make sure that you keep that person accountable. And that's where like SQL audit logs end up coming into play, because yes, I can lock both of you out, but then if I can go update the data, we need to be able to audit that information. And after a certain period of time, like not everything, we don't guarantee that everything is going to get captured inside of like query insights, for example, or maybe I can schedule it in such a way to get around having that logged by query insights, because I know that there's some operation that doesn't get logged or something like that. But the audit logs aren't one of those things that you can really mess with. They are there. Like I said, they're immutable. You can't change them. They capture all this information that happens, all these different events and everything. And we just store them in one lake. So, the data's out there. It's got your 3 copies of data because it's backed by ADLS and all that sort of stuff. So it's redundant. And so this is a really great thing, like you're saying, Tommy, just for compliance reasons, to be able to make sure that you know exactly what's happening in case the FBI comes in and wants to do some investigation. Data sitting out there in one lake, like we were saying there, so you can just use the same system functions that you're used to in SQL Server to go read those in just in an XEL file, I think is the extension that sits on those, and be able to go take a look at those. So it's a nice little piece of functionality, because like the other side of that, if you were in the SQL Server world, and even like Power BI and stuff like that, you can write out to log analytics some of the events that occur. But I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but even log analytics, we don't guarantee 100% of events are always captured with those methods. So this is a way that we can have a little bit better guarantee that things are going to be captured for all those events. So nice addition there. I think it's going to be going GA here pretty soon.
Excellent. This is hitting like the 999s, right? So it's like 99.99% of the like higher level of confidence.
Yeah.
The log analytics is like 99.98, right? Just a touch under.
Right.
So
yeah.
Don't quote me on those numbers. Those are not real numbers. So for those of you
just making these up.
Just making these up, FYI. All right, Brad, let's go to the next feature. What's another feature that you're thinking is going to be a big impact for the community here?
So this one, I don't know how big of an impact, but I think it's an interesting conversation about architecture that we can have here. And that's the configurable retention. This is the one that I say I don't think is actually on the actual roadmap out there, but we've talked about it a little bit. Like we're looking at, is it on there? Okay.
Yeah, it's number 3 on the list, Q3 2025.
The explanation's not long, but it's there. So
the explanation's trash. Let's give it what it is. It's like it says configurable retention rate 1 to 30 days. It literally says ability to configure retention rate between 1 to 30. The description is the same as the title. So like it's okay. Yeah. Help me out here, Brad. I don't really know what's going on. So this is a great conversation because no one knows.
So this really just gives you the ability to configure retention between 1 and 30 days.
Oh, I get it now.
Perfect.
Okay. I want to
you got it. All right.
Ship it. So bring out the sheet cake. It's time to party.
Brad, that was good. That was very good.
The genesis behind this was actually that, so when you go out and make a change to a table, let's say I delete a record, in order to do time travel and point in time restore and all that sort of stuff, we store that particular version of the record for 30 days. And then we've got a garbage collection process that comes through and says, if this isn't referenced, like if it's a record you deleted, for instance, then we'll go out and we'll get rid of that file. Obviously, if it's a record that's still in the table, we have to keep it, but we get rid of the changes. And so what happens is you actually get billed for that storage for the 30-day time period because we have to keep the data around. And we had these situations where people would come to us and say, look, I don't care about that history on these tables. Give me the ability, or maybe I don't care about it for that long. Maybe I only really care about it for like 4 or 5 days or a week in case something goes wrong or I realize it a couple of days later so I can go back and recover the data. Conversely, we also get people to say, I want to be able to keep it for years. And we're like, well, Delta doesn't quite perform well if you start ending up with 10 years worth of history in there.
Yes.
Like there's a tipping point. So that's where we ended up with this configurable retention between that time period. We said, look, we're going to give you the ability to say, I don't need to keep it quite so long. I'm going to be able to optimize my cost a little bit. But this is where things get into the architecture discussion a little bit. It's because the configurable retention is going to be at the warehouse level. And if you think about like loading data in, we always have these transient tables that we're going to land data into with a copy into, and then we're going to like do a merge into my final dimensional model or something like that. And so you end up in this interesting paradigm, or you have this interesting paradigm where I've got some data inside my warehouse that I don't care about any history. I would drop it all the way down to 1 day if I could. But then I've got all this dimensional model stuff that maybe I do want to keep 30 days worth of history. And so we have to balance those two out inside of this, at least for the time being, until we get enough feedback to say, no, let me go define this on an individual table level. But then we get into our previous conversations of, well, do we do it at the individual table level and give the pro dev people the ability to do that at the risk of confusing some of the people who are on the low code, no code side who maybe wouldn't know how or know to go look on the individual table level. So then we get into an interesting discussion about like what should the feature actually look like. But again, from an architecture perspective, that does have some interesting implications because it is at the warehouse level. But that's kind of the genesis of where that feature came from.
And this is my lack of knowledge here a little bit, but help me understand. Does the warehouse have the concept of like schemas inside the warehouse?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And the reason I feel like what you're saying is, again, I'm thinking architecturally here. I think a good breakpoint for me personally, again, the warehouse seems a bit heavy-handed in my opinion there. That's like a little bit overly done. But the fact that I can talk between schemas in a warehouse, right? If I have 2 schemas, I can easily specify the schema and pull tables from that schema. I feel like a potential decent compromise here. And I'm not trying to write your feature for you. You write it how you want it, but I feel like at the schema level, at least that gives me a little bit of boundary to, okay, it's one warehouse. Because if not, I'm actually jumping. Like if let's say I did want 2 retentions, I'm just going to spin up 2 warehouses, and then I'm going to jump between the 2 warehouses, land it in one, and pick it up in the other. Again, it just seems a little bit more heavy-handed than I think it should be. But at a schema level, that seems reasonable. And table level might be also, on the other side of things, a bit too heavy-handed as well. So schema level for me would be like, I think, a reasonable balance between, look, you get some bit more control. We're not heavy-handing you the whole warehouse. We're giving you schema level, retention changes. And then again, I'm probably asking for something that's even harder to do than table by table. But that feels reasonable to me.
Not saying that I have made that exact same suggestion or anything, but I'll just say that is a brilliant compromise. I think that you have come up with there.
I love that.
That would be perfect.
All right, so we're gonna edit this clip. We'll make a short out of this.
We're making a short out of it. And we're gonna promote the snot out of it.
Yeah.
The first brilliant Michael's ever gotten. Usually, that could be a game changer right there.
Ooh, don't use that. We know that we don't. We use that word sparingly.
Yeah, right. So it's sparingly. We sparingly use game changer. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Tommy, your reaction to retention periods?
No, I think this would be one of those things we talked about with Copilot that I would love to see, where it's like, hey, I'm dumb. What would be the best configuration for me, especially if the explanation as detailed on the user interface for users getting into this, because this is something that it has a lot of benefit and has it marred a significant impact and can have a significant impact. But to a user, right, getting into this, and again, that whether it's the expert, they'll know what to do. But if that's someone like, again, dumb people going in and looking at this going, I know there's some value here, but do I do 10 days? Do I do 30 days? For the size of my data, what would be the recommendation here? I think this is something that I like to see, both from a Copilot point of view, but it's something that I know is important, or we know is important.
Yeah, for sure.
Brad, I think I can guess, by the way, the one that you wanted me to say about what should have been there in the warehouse. Can I see if I'm right? So
yeah, go ahead.
Is it
he's going off the guardrails again. Like he's
okay. I'll stop. Go ahead. No, I'll leave it till the
end. No. It's probably on my list. Go for it. I want to see.
Varchar Max.
Oh no, people should never use Varchar Max. What are you doing?
Well, I was going to tease about that one too, but I wasn't going to say it's a good. I was like, okay, fine, give it to me. Like, really? Okay.
No, but it does fall in the same family. It's in that same family of things. Okay. What was your next guest? I'm curious now.
You know what? I'm just going to stop at this point.
He's just throwing darts now. I mean, this is just darts on a board at this point.
So
I'm putting myself on mute. Continue the conversation.
So Varchar Max actually go in the same merge. There it is. They're merge identity Varchar Max. They kind of all go into the same like SQL parity kind of bucket that we have. Like and so I think those 3 things together will help us get to a more like code first kind of person. Like I'm not somebody who doesn't know how to write SQL. I'm going to do everything with interact with my warehouse through data flows, maybe where I've got the GUI and I can do all this stuff. But I know enough that I want to be able to write a merge statement, or I need an identity column. Like I know these kind of terms. So Varchar Max again is just another one of those. Like I tease. There are some valid cases where you might want to put Varchar Max. Of course, you should use that stuff sparingly. And it's one of those things too. It's a little bit of a guardrail. Like when you don't have it, it forces people to think about like, well, how big is the data set that's actually going to be in there? Because in SQL Server world, and like this, that is the world that the data warehouse engine runs off. That sort of stuff does impact the query plans, the size of the data that sits inside of it, or the size of the columns that you're using there. So that's where I say like you can go just define Varchar Max on everything, but it's going to lead to a poor performance. And that's like my concern as we bring that back in. But also, again, I understand that there are obviously use cases where we have to have that sort of stuff in there. But yeah.
It must be difficult as a PM to have people requesting things you know are going to hurt them, right? Like you're like, I understand why you want it, but really, can we just have a better conversation? Like, okay, it's like, you know, this is a bad analogy, but it's like telling your kid, don't do that, you're going to burn yourself. And they're like, okay, and do it anyways. I'm like, I just told you we shouldn't be doing this, and yet you hurt yourself. I'm like, don't run around the pool. You're gonna fall. And then we have people running around the pool and they fall. I'm like, see, I told you. Like the performance is not as good if you use varchar max on everything. Like, I get it. It just feels like that one of those stories.
That was like the fun thing about being on the solution architecture side before coming to the product team was like you have the ability to stop people and say, all right, well, let me push back on you a little bit more with that. Like you have that ability over here, but at some point, like we have to just understand what people need to do, and like we don't have as much influence on what people actually build. So yeah, it's very much I understand you need it. I'd rather you not do it, but we sort of have to do some of these things here at the same time.
Let's maybe pick up one more here before we kind of wrap. I think we're getting close on time here. And I think maybe, Brad, you talked about this one before we went on the phone call here. Were you talking about data clustering? Was that one of the ones that you kind of was on your list?
Talking about data clustering. Yeah, there's two things that fall into that like pro dev category: custom SQL pools and data clustering. I'll give you the very quick version of custom SQL pools just because I think it's interesting, and then we can talk about data clustering here.
Let's do it.
So workload management is like one of the biggest feedback items that we get from folks that have to manage these systems on a day-to-day basis. And like with custom SQL pools, what we do today is you basically get two sets of compute. You get a read set and a write set. Select and non-select is what we call them in the docs, I think. And so what custom SQL pools are allowing you to do is say, hey, we're not going to have these two distinct sets of compute now. You're going to be able to carve it up into n number of pools of compute. So that way, when Mike connects, you get 2 of my 10 nodes. When Tommy connects, he gets 3 of my 10 nodes. When I connect, I get the default, which is the rest of it, but I've got to share it with everybody else that's running inside the organization. So it allows you to configure some of those guardrails a little bit better, so that you don't have one person kind of going in and just running something and taking away everything from the environment there. So that'll be something really cool that's going to be coming here pretty soon.
I like that a lot.
Mike,
data clustering. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, Mike, that goes with a lot of what we've talked about from that governance. Like we want to give the teams access to these products, but we also don't want them to we don't want to give everyone
to fall over.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I think if I want to give marketing, hey, you have a warehouse of all of your data, but don't use it because you don't know what you're doing. What a great solution here.
Yeah.
If there's one place where I can say it depends, it feels a lot about like what does the architecture design look like, and like how many fabric SKUs do you use? Like, and sometimes you may want to buy one big one and throw it across many different workspaces. But then in other cases, you're like, well, maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe I do need to divide my large SKU into here's one for dev test, here's one for prod. Like I want to make sure there's physical compute isolation in certain environments. And so I feel like this is one of these areas where it seems to fit this story of we have to kind of think about what does the architecture mean for our organization, and in which places are we not tolerant to have anything fall over, right? There's going to be places where we're going to for sure say, we're not going to let this workspace or these groups of workspaces, this is so important to our business, we can't let them fall over. And therefore, that's going to change slightly the design. We're not going to buy one large fabric SKU and share compute. We're going to then specify it per team. And then this also speaks to, Tommy, your point around each team's knowledge set, right? Some teams are great at data flows Gen 2. Other teams are great at Python. Other teams are going to write other stuff. They're going to be in the warehouse, the SQL, right? Each one of those teams could be using a different level of compute. And you may need to say, okay, marketing team, here's your compute, go have fun. Like use it until it's gone, because that's what you're willing to pay for. Because I can't have them coming into my ecosystem and overusing the data engineering space where we can't get you data because now you're running dumb things in somewhere else in the system. So this is a very, it depends kind of question, it feels like to me.
Yeah. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take like the last 3 minutes of this, and I'm going to send it to the PM that actually is in charge of this feature, because I think there's a little bit of like the follow-on request that we always get is exactly what you guys are describing. It's it's twofold. It's one, I need to limit a particular group or a particular user from taking all of my data warehouse capacity. Like we've only got so many compute nodes behind the warehouse specifically on a workspace. I want to be able to limit them. But the other part of it that you guys took it a step further there in the discussion was, but now I want to also do that at the capacity level. And I want to be able to limit it so that my warehouse itself doesn't take over my entire capacity and be able to do that. So this particular piece of functionality is going to solve the first one, but it stops short of fully satisfying that second piece that you have. Now we can help mitigate that. Like you could say, I'm going to create one SQL pool that's got only a handful, like a very small number of nodes, so that it chips away at my capacity slower. But it's not going to ever put that guardrail on to say that it can't chip away at my entire capacity over time. And I think that's the piece that we get from a lot of folks. We talk to them about this and they say, yeah, I want to go that one step further and I want to be able to make sure I protect my capacity all up, not just the experience on my warehouse.
I think you hit the nail on the head on that particular feature, because there is this capacity-wide feature that we're talking about here. And because I don't have the dials to say, okay, let me just ratio out here, like what things are important, or, even just making the prioritized list, right? Hey, my reports and semantic models come first. If those things start running out of stuff, start slowing down slow down the loading of everything else behind the scenes. Like, again, this is the workloads need to kind of like communicate to each other, like what I'm doing, how am I doing on it? Like it just kind of just feeds itself, right? So until I get those controls governed at the capacity level, which I don't know when that's coming, if it ever come, I'm going to be forced to kind of say, okay, I need to, as an architect, think strategically around carving out the right pieces at the right levels. And again, that's what I think. Maybe that's temporary for now. It'll probably get smarter and better over time. That voice of that story will get louder and louder. Eventually, Microsoft will come back and say, well, we'll have a solution to help you with that.
I'll give you just one pushback on that. And that is the challenge with saying like, hey, I want to, once I get to a certain point, I want to slow down these other workloads here so that I don't necessarily hit my full capacity. Yeah. People, like especially in the database world, you value two things. You value uptime and you value predictability. So if I come in and my query runs in 5 minutes today, and then tomorrow I come in and the system happened to be busy and it was outside of the realm of my SQL Server instance, and now my SQL Server is all of a sudden running in 10 minutes instead of 5, and I don't really know why that's happening because my focus is the SQL world. Like that makes DBAs very unhappy. And that has downstream user effects as well that come into that. So I don't disagree with what you're saying necessarily, but I would just maybe say we've got to figure out what the right implications of all of these things are so that we don't end up impacting, because ultimately this stuff all has a business impact at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and
agree.
But also does also putting your capacity to 500% and being locked out of it for 48 hours or 5 days or whatever it is.
You can't have that either. Like it's a balance.
Yeah.
Well, I ran a test with data flows, and a single data flow in a F2 capacity, something I could do in Power BI would refresh in 20 minutes, killed the capacity. And I have no control over that. But I think from what we're talking, at least in the warehouse point of view, and Brad, I'm going to give you a sound bite that you'll be able to feed to your manager or whoever you need to.
Oh boy.
So Brad, I completely agree.
Warning.
I completely agree with the previous statements and insert product or feature here that you just said. But honestly, go ahead.
I was going to say I like this discussion. Actually, I think this is very relevant here, especially. One thing I'm going to poke on a little bit, and again, Brad, feel free to like bounce this question off and say, we'll talk about this later if you need to, because this might be a bit visionary in nature. Spark has the ability of letting us pull out capacity. I'm going to call it Spark Auto Scale. I mean, that's really what the feature is, right? I can take out the pricing for Spark and move it out of my Fabric CU usage and just put the price of the Spark running in Azure. Like, and this is where, Santosh and the other team, we've talked a lot about this on the podcast. It's like, hey, we want hyperscale. I want to have like 30 nodes or 100 nodes. I'm going to do a big data processing thing. I need a lot of compute, and it needs to just be outside. Like, there's no bout of fabric you can buy that's going to get you that kind of compute stuff. So to your point, Brad, I really want to double down on that point of there are mission critical consistencies. To your point, I agree. I would be angry too if today it ran for 5 and tomorrow it ran for 10. I didn't know why. Now, if there's a message from the system that says, look, we're throttling, we're kind of pulling back some things, be aware it's going to be a bit slower, fine. But sometimes SQL and DBAs are used to saying, I have purchased the compute, I know how much I have, it's consistent, and I'm expecting regular results. And for whatever reason, I'm running testing or whatever. You expect that to run well every single time. I think there is a need here to sit in the same way that Spark offloads its compute back to Azure. I would like to see specifically for SQL databases, maybe even the data warehouse, the same concept, right? I'm still using the on-demand, per-core, single node, multiple node MPP architecture, but I want to be able to say, look, I want the auto-scale billing for SQL and data warehouses as well. Just pull it out of Fabric and put it back in Azure. Microsoft, you're still getting your money, right? I'm gonna, right? I mean, this is a money grab at this point, how I see it. So you're still getting your money for like, when I use the machine, I'm paying you fairly for the extra usage of that machine. And then we get best of both worlds where I'm not trying to overshoot my Fabric capacity for something that's too big that I don't need. And then I'm also paying for all the actual compute I'm using from the SQL data warehouse or the SQL database, and now it's reliable. And whenever we start talking about bringing transactional workloads into Fabric, this is the one that makes me very cautious right now, is because that sucker can't go down. I can't have a production transactional SQL or data warehouse system running where it's not doing fast transactions. It's a must-have capability. So I'm just going to leave that one there. You may take that soundbite, pan it back to a different PM. What do you think, Brad? Is this something like, can we even talk about this? Or is this just like, shut up, Michael, we'll talk in a year?
I will say it is a discussion that is constantly ongoing. I think Spark set the Spark team kind of blazed that trail and pushed through some of the, like, I'm sure there were plenty of internal politics they had to go through. Like, I don't know what all they had to go to, but like that obviously went against the full capacity model that we have. And so, I would fully expect that we will have other workloads start to piggyback off of that, being that there's precedence for it in the platform now. So this is our call to action.
Arun, Amir, this is the message to you through our podcast. We don't. To be frankly honest, we don't talk daily. Like, we're friends, but we don't talk. But this is the Arun, Amir. Can you please give us allow Brad and his team to develop this amazing architecture that will be Fabric SQL auto scale, and let us pull that out of the Fabric capacity. I think that would be a major win, or at least a problem that I see and I'm very cautious about by not putting transactional loads inside Fabric at this point.
Brad, a better answer would have been, but Mike, haven't you heard about Varchar Max being available?
That's always how you push these off. I'll remember that for the next time this comes up.
Tommy knows this because I do this with him a lot whenever he's talking to me in the podcast. We have to redirect a lot.
Brilliant ideas. I love it though. Because this is the good part about what we do. So. Most
of my conversation in those situations start with a Tommy, let me rephrase your question so I understand it. And I just change the total question to whatever I want to add, whatever I want to answer.
I like that. I'm gonna have to try that one. I haven't done the let me make sure I understand the question. Just ask a completely different one.
Yeah. So Mike, I think I hear you saying, when you're talking about capacity, let me rephrase your question. You're asking about Varchar Max, right?
We're on the same page. Okay, good.
I think we're good. Oh my goodness. I don't think I've laughed this hard on an episode in quite a while. And who thought it would have been on data warehousing, no less?
Yeah.
Well, as long as it's not laughing at data warehouse's expense, that's all that matters.
No, we're good. I think this is just us being goofy people and data nerds here as well. So awesome. Love that. And then with that, Did you want to touch? I mean, I did want to let you know have an opportunity. You said data clustering one very briefly thing, Brad. Did you want to make a quick note on there before we call it?
Yeah,
today,
I'll give you kind of just the very quick elevator pitch here. So clustering is one of those cool things. Like we talked a bunch over the last couple episodes, which by the way, I really appreciate you guys having me on these couple episodes here. This has been a lot of fun. So we'll have to come back and do this again in the future, but I'll let you guys get back to your normally scheduled content from here. So we talked before about how things like data distribution are things that we want to abstract away from people, but we find these small needs here and there to where we need to give people a bit more control over what's going on in the system. So what data clustering is going to allow us to do is say, we're still not going to make you define a distribution key or anything like that on the table whenever you create it. We want to continue to make sure that is a very accessible functionality for everybody to just create tables and be successful. But when you have those big data sets, or you have these specific workload patterns where you're doing like these point selects on a table, or maybe you're looking at a specific range of data, that sort of thing, we want to be able to not have to scan billions of records in order to find that. So we want to be able to say kind of partition elimination, if you will, if you go back to like SQL Server days, if you're familiar with that term there. And so what you're going to do here is essentially define a distribution key, if you will, or a clustering key, as it were in this case. And you can give it a handful of columns. I think we can give it up to 7 columns or something like that. And it's going to then, through the magic of some algorithms, it's going to co-locate as much data as it can on disk into files that are near each other. That way, when I do those point lookups, I don't have to go scan this entire range. I only have to go scan this little range over here. So it's going to help customers from a couple of perspectives. One, it'll help with hopefully performance on some of those queries there, but also the cost of those queries, because I'm now having to read less data and all that sort of stuff. There's going to be an ingestion cost because we have to, move the data around on the back end and rejigger the files and all that kind of stuff to make sure that the data is co-located. But once you get to that point, all your read operations downstream are going to all benefit from that. So that's really what it's built for. It's a read time optimization for some specific query patterns, and we've seen some really good success with some customers already using that. We see it. I've seen a couple of customers use it for like multi-tenant environments where they say, "Look, I've got 5 or 6 different clients worth of data inside of the same table, but I always look at a particular client at a time to surface it back to them." So cluster on the client key, and then all my queries are going to be able to scan just a subset of the data, save me some money downstream, and hopefully get some better performance at the end of that.
So this I super enjoy. Like, again, I like this idea of like Microsoft is so smart. There's geniuses all about, like, seriously, like, I mean, who's going to spend more money on the people who know more about SQL than Microsoft will? This is their bread and butter. They're going to have the people who understand all the details here. And I really love the fact that you're just kind of like taking the step ahead and say, look, we can pruning, partitioning, like, the best practices, just make it easy for me. Like, just, I don't have to figure it out. You're just going to automatically figure out, okay, here's giving you some more control, even providing suggestions with like Copilot to things like, hey, we're going to do a thing here and click this okay button and we'll help you kind of get it figured. Like, you guys should handle it. I like this. This makes a ton of sense to me.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I think of a world in the future where you just run queries a bunch and then we come in and say, hey, this table looks like you do have a pretty common query pattern on it. Maybe you want to do some data clustering on here and improve that. Like, just like you do in SQLDB and Fabric. Like, hey, you run these queries, we're going to go ahead and create this index for you. Maybe we'll just start moving the data around in the back end automatically. So
I like that a lot. And that just, again, makes me happy as a user. Just kind of, again, I think this is, to your point, this is bringing the barrier that you had to be like pro code all the time. And now we're bringing that barrier down a little bit lower to people that are technical, but like they don't really want to stay in the world. And I mean, I don't see any, so just another one. I don't see any LLM or MCPs showing up on the roadmap yet, but I have to imagine there's at least internal conversations already with, where does an MCP fit in this place? What does that look like here for all these other things? It seems like there's a whole new world that's kind of opening up to us in general that will be interesting to kind of see how it all unfolds. All right.
I have something real quick. This is an
go ahead, Tommy.
Data warehouses, as you guys were talking about, an endless stream and all the things coming. Brad, I'm going to dedicate this to you because honestly, we appreciate you having on. Thanks, ChatGPT too. So you know where this is going. Come with me, and you'll see a world built on data foundation, rows and streams, endless dreams inside the fabric creation. We'll begin with a spin on a query without limitation.
Oh, that's a good one.
Find blows your mind in a warehouse of imagination. So I figured we're doing a lot of things. We're opening up this world. It's a bit of pretty cool with the warehouse. We'll edit that part out, but this is good.
It's okay. Tommy, don't quit your day job.
I'm muting myself for the next 3 days, so I'm out.
Brad, thank you so much for your time today. This was absolutely super fun. I've laughed so hard through these last couple episodes. It's been enjoyable. Thank you for picking up on our really weird, dry, techie humor and just jumping in and playing like within the team. I'm here for it.
Like I said, I really appreciate you guys having me on these last few episodes. It's been awesome. A lot of fun. I really enjoy coming and talking about this. And if we can make one more warehouse fan out there, then it's all worth it.
We've done it. We've done it. I think you've actually made a couple. I would say more than just one. I think we've kind of you've turned our eyes more towards this, and I'm going to be much more pro warehouse in the future here. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you watching the podcast. I hope you were laughing along. This is a bit longer of an episode, so thank you for hanging in there with us. For those of you who are on your bike or running, good job. You're making it to the end here. Push a little bit harder to the end. We're at the end of the episode. So we do know a lot of people exercise because we've gotten feedback on it. We're like, this is great. I'm so bored when I walk, and you guys fill the time. So that's great. We really appreciate everyone in the community here. If you like this episode, please comment down below. It helps the algorithm out. Just let us know what part of the episode that you liked. Are there any features that you see on the roadmap? The links are in the description. Please go check them out. Let us know with your comments. What do you think is going to be the most impactful coming out here in the near future? Brad will make an algorithm, and he'll have a data warehouse pulling all the comments in so he can see them and feed them right to the PMs directly. We know this will be a thing. We can do it. It's a thing. Just kidding. That's totally a joke. And then finally here, please like and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate your viewership here. And also, by the way, we're announcing something new over these last couple episodes. We have a membership tier. If you would like to become a member, you can down in the description below. And if you are annoyed with ads on top of your videos, you can go get our videos. We will supply this video to you as a member. There's no ads in it at all. You can just listen to it clean through on YouTube. And you can also listen to it on your other platforms as well. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It really helps us out a ton. Share with someone. Put it on your LinkedIn. We do this for free. Do you have a question, idea, or topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode? Head over to powerbi.tips/podcast. Leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation on all of powerbi.tips social media channels.
Yeah, Brad, you flustered Tommy. We've only done this outro
for
like 400.
Here. Yeah.
We've landed hard, Tommy. Like, there we go. It's just bumpy ride in the way in here. We've only done this for like 450 episodes. We still can't quite get it. It's just, it is what it is.
I'm out.
It happens.
I'm good. I need a nap.
Long weekends.
We'll talk to you later. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you so much.